Awesome. It's a good thing. Okay, let's stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Awesome. It's a good thing. Okay, let's stand.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meeting by acknowledging that we planted our ancestral land is a monthly Assokas and Lenape people. And working on a redraft of this, but for now, have a look at the links that we share on our agendas and minutes and share with others and share anything that you want with us to help expand the business.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest that we move the consent agenda.
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any announcements from the village board?
Yeah, I've got a couple. One is we're having a name change clinic on Thursday, February 27th, right here in this room at Village Hall, 25 Plattekill Avenue. We're teaming up with the Chosen Family Law Center to offer this name change clinic again on Thursday, February 27th at 7 p.m. here at Village Hall at 25 Plattekill Avenue. This is the way you can update your name and gender markers on your IDs to reflect who you really are. Chosen Family Law Center will walk you through the name change filing process at this free pro se clinic. Doors open at 6:30. These arrive no later than 6:50 p.m. And there's an online form that you can fill out that's can be found on the village's website in order to register, so we know how many materials to prepare. And you can email Wojcik, WOJCIK @villageofnewpaltz.org if you have any questions.
Any other announcements from village board members?
I have one more, which is the same one that I always do for Family of New Paltz. We do have some people from Family of Woodstock, which is the umbrella organization that New Paltz is under. If you want to help your neighbors in need, please donate to Family of New Paltz. They can always use money, number one, and if you have personal care items are always really big, so toothbrushes, toothpaste, vending products, anything like that to share with neighbors, that would be really wonderful. We also have the free food fridge here at 25 Plattekill Avenue. Come and donate some food, come get some food if you need it, anytime you want, and we have a way to heat up food in there as well, so let us know if you need help, or just show up.
Any other announcements from village board members? Do we have legislator Lena Grace on the line?
Yes.
Unmute my brand.
Can you bring this?
Hi, legislator Harmon.
Good
You're
evening.
here. Hi, you're here within the announcement portion of our agenda, so please take it away.
Okay, great. Sorry, I was a little late. So a couple of things that I definitely wanted to draw to everyone's attention. I've been doing some research on warming centers and how to meet those needs. And I have a better understanding now than I did of what's at play in the warming center situation. So currently we receive $1 million from the state, we being Ulster County, and we get 1/20th of the statewide allocation to put up the warming center that is in Kingston. And we've held that allocation for 10 years, which is, we might be the only place that has held their allocation. So that's unique. And it takes $1 million to put up the warming center for the 5 months that it is open. It started out at $40,000, but that has gone up as services have increased. So there is no more money from any place outside of the county with which to fund another warming center, which of course doesn't mean that the need isn't there. It just means that we have to think about it very differently than we had been prepared to do. Um, and it's also difficult because, of course, there's the zoning laws and that often prohibit a warming shelter, and there's not a place that already exists to house one. So there's all of those factors. So I am thinking increasingly that if it's going to take years to put together a warming center, which it took years to put the one together that they're now opening in Ellenville, that time and energy would probably be better spent, money would be better spent on something that meets greater needs and is funded from different funding streams. So that is what I'm turning attention to exploring with the county executive's office. Also, I'm serving on the newly separated out Housing and Transportation Committee this year. And so I do have a couple of updates just on what housing is available, again, countywide, not here, but we work together. So currently there's 2,763 units of affordable housing. And those are many of those are ending their initial affordability period. So it's unclear how long that number will be stable. However, there are 7 new projects. Of course, some of those are here, which will add another 500 units of affordable housing. And then there are additional ones pending approval, but those are all smaller and will likely lead to another 30 units of affordable housing countywide. So that's what I can report on our work to get a handle on the housing crisis from multiple angles and multiple points of entry.
So, thank you, Lemino. I know you and I have been collaborating on this, but I met with Laura Nordstrom, who is the head for the county of housing and homelessness. And so that we shifted it recently to look at different, offering more services and getting a better bang for the buck. So we will certainly keep everybody updated. Once we get to the next steps, we're putting together another next meeting right now.
Absolutely. Anything you'd like me to take in the other direction?
I just have a question for you. So something that I struggle with, because I feel like we receive a lot of requests from our community, is just making distinctions between cooling centers, warming centers, and a shelter. So is the programming that's offered at Catholic Charities in Kingston that you're referring to initially, my understanding is that's a shelter, whereas a warming center could simply just be a place for someone who simply needs to get warm. I mean, obviously you can get warm in a shelter too, but there's really like very different levels of programming that could be offered at a shelter versus a warming center. So that's why I'm curious about why you were describing the Catholic Charities offering as a warming center.
Because that's how the county
We got Michael Berg here. Maybe we can
Okay.
include Michael in the conversation.
Come on up.
Yeah, Michael, come sit with us. And then Lynn, go ahead. Let's let Lynn answer my question, and then it'd be fantastic if you want to help us with understanding this landscape better too.
So I'm specifically going off of what we talked about in our inaugural housing and transportation meeting. And this is what the executive's office, that's how they are describing it. They are describing it as a warming center. And I think it probably is somewhat confusing because since inception, they have added a great deal of services to that center, right? So it probably exists now in a gray area. So for our purposes right now, I think one of the important things is how it's funded. Right, so it's
Okay, so
funded through that,
Right, so historically, it started as a warming center and then services were added.
correct,
So that's why we're still using that phrase.
correct.
So we have Michael from Family of Woodstock knows more about this than most of us.
It is a warming center. It's not a shelter. What it is though, is that the code blue was called upon when the temperature went under 32 degrees. The county's program is staying open continuously from November to March. That's why it's expensive, because it has staffing 24 hours, but it doesn't have nearly level of service that our shelters do.
Right, okay. So that aligns exactly with how you described it. That's super helpful. I appreciate the background.
The warming center that opened in Ellenville a couple of days ago, it seems, they've been trying to do that for a very long time. They couldn't find a location. It seems as if what happened, Red Cross rebuilt the Hunt building, which is a historical building in Ellenville, but then they wouldn't allow it to be used because it had to be used in case of emergency. So it couldn't be being used because then it couldn't be used. So it wasn't used, and somehow the county executive has convinced them to allow it to be used. So that's wonderful, because it should have been that way years ago.
So is that a county supported?
I don't know, I don't know, it would seem as if the county is saying that all the code blue money is done, then it's probably supported.
The Ellenville site will have much more limited hours. It will not be at least certainly not initially, it will not be the level of service that the Kingston site offers. So it will have more limited hours, more limited days, and it will be much more like the one in Kingston started. And part of the challenge is to really get a clear sense of the numbers of people that will be served. Kingston serves 40 to 60. They expect Ellenville to begin at 10, some of those coming from the number they usually see in Kingston, some not. And so there's also the question of just having a clear data set for what then would the utilization be in the southeastern part of the county, this side of the ridge. So there are a lot of questions. But what I don't want us to do is get so hung up on warming center that we can't see the forest for the trees. And I think we can actually do something bigger, better, more productive. And it's going to take a long time no matter what we do. So let's do the best we can if we're going to use the time.
Can you elaborate a bit further? Like, so you're saying don't get hung up on trying to replicate exactly what's being offered in Kingston, but there may be a near-term solution or some sort of offering that might. So I'm just confused what distinction you're making.
I'm saying that if it would take years to put up a warming center, which what I'm learning is that it takes years to negotiate all of the pieces and find the money, and it takes years to come up with the same, you have to do the same amount of work to come up with a shelter, the same amount of work to come up with housing, so I would rather we work on more comprehensive service sites than the least comprehensive service sites if we're going to put all of the energy into it. Is that clear?
Yeah,
I just wanted to correct you. Kathy Charities did run the warming center for a while in Kingston, but they're not doing it now.
They're no longer involved at all.
No, they're
That's within the
pastor at
last
the church.
couple of years.
If they did it up until last year.
Okay,
The pastor at the church and a woman named Jeannie Edwards, who has been on the city county council. And the people running the laundry fund, Big Bubble
yes,
on Broadway, put together a group of community people that are running it. They're cooking, they're using the service of the church, and so far they're doing.
so isn't that a Novo initiative?
No,
Not at all?
I don't think so. It's largely being paid for at the Cold Blue. That's why there's no other money for the Cold Blue, because they're paying for a 5-month program.
Okay. Well, thank you both.
Absolutely.
Anything?
Anything else I can take back?
Just a quick question, Lynn.
Yeah.
Is there a county resource for affordable housing? What's being planned? What's online now in terms of what's available so that the public can access that information?
You broke up a little bit, Bill. I don't.
Is there a
Can you repeat?
countywide resource? Is there a resource, an online resource where people can find where affordable housing is being built and or existing?
I don't think that there is, but I think that we might have a new partner to certainly suggest that to. And you know, and all of these projects have different agreements, right? So some of them have lotteries that have to happen, and they all have different agreements. So it might be that doesn't exist because it would be more confusing than helpful. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if it looks like there's 60 housing units and you know you need affordable housing, but then it turns out that there's only 5 of those that you qualify because of your particular circumstances, then that's kind of devastating. You know, I mean, and so I don't know. I am speculating here. I want to be very clear. I don't know, but that is a complication that does come readily to mind. But we should definitely talk to Laura Nordstrom about that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else? All
I
right.
think that's it. Thanks for connecting with us tonight.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
Thanks, Lynn.
Next on this agenda is public comment. Anyone from the public here in person want to call? Do we have anyone online interested in making a public comment? No. Okay, so then we're gonna move into the first item on our business agenda, Tom Olson, Railroad Restoration Project Initiative Update. Come on up, Tom.
Would you like me to continue?
Yes, that'd be
Okay.
great.
Wonderful. So we're up to the visuals. Thank you very much for giving me just a few minutes tonight. I want to do 2 things. One is to introduce everybody to a group that has just formed and a project that we're hoping to undertake. And secondly, to ask for the village's permission and I guess blessing to take some preliminary steps in this direction. So the project is to install a section of railroad siding just to the east of the train station.
You can show us and then.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, do that. So this is the site that we're talking about, which everybody I hope recognizes as the current rail trail right next to the restaurant that occupies the old station. And so let me pass out just a little visual that should help locate exactly where we're talking about. But the reason this is coming up is that the hotel project at 11 Water Street is going to demolish the building that's there, and it's going to remove approximately 90 feet of the last remaining railroad siding, the last of 6 that used to exist in New Paltz. They want to use about 40 to 50 feet of that siding for their own sort of landscape design, which means that there's going to be something like 40 to 50 feet of surplus track, which has been promised to us which, you know, otherwise would probably get recycled, but where this gets interesting is to think about what a railroad siding means in the history of a community like New Paltz. So that's my second visual. This is what the station looked like kind of prior to the heyday of 1924. This is not a 1924 photo, but sort of leading up to that. And what you see there,
That's looking north, right?
that's what all of these shots are going to be looking north, with the station just to the west. And what we had there was actually 3 sets of tracks, 1 main line and 2 sidings. One was for freight, it was a commercial siding, the other was for passengers. And basically the purpose of the siding is to get train cars off the main line so that another train can pass. It's something that still exists. It's not too much to say that the railroad and the sidings that attached to it kind of built the economic base of New Paltz in the second 19th century into the 20th century. And so a site that's not familiar anymore, but you know, train cars right next to the current station would have been an absolutely everyday thing, both passenger and freight. And now we're into the last days of a functioning railroad in New Paltz. You can kind of tell from the little Honda Civic of the mid-70s that this is right at the end of a functional rail line. And so what we have today is an absolutely wonderful community resource in the rail trail. But we have basically lost any sense that there was a rail line there, that there was an economic beating heart of New Paltz there. And what I mean by economic beating heart is this is where produce and manufactured goods would have left New Paltz. This is where things would have come into New Paltz, including what's left of the space that is at 11 Water Street was at one point a lumber yard. And so lumber came in and was distributed out from there. And so the group that I'm representing tonight would like to start an initiative to put as much track down in the spot that you have on your little schema, where you see 2 parallel lines basically equivalent to the length of the station. That represents approximately 200 feet is what we're thinking. In order to do that, though, we need a lot of things, starting with the blessing of the village board, because you own the land. It's leased to the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, but the land belongs to the village, and obviously we're not going to.
But it's not leased.
Or arranged.
Well, there's a conservation easement.
That's it.
Their responsibility.
So now
They administer the conservation easement.
yeah, and actually that's a question. Is that in perpetuity? Is there some kind of time frame?
I don't know.
Okay. So anyway, it's owned by the village.
Yeah.
So we would like your permission to do a couple of very preliminary things. At this point, this group consists of 4 people, 3 of them vitally interested in railroad history, who know a lot, and then me, coming at it more from the preservation angle. And so if you remember, there was a document that I circulated a couple of days ago. Basically, what we would like is permission to store any donated track or track that we can purchase at a good price in preparation for this, just on the west side of the rail trail, still on the village property, still on the right of way. But we need a place to put a track. It's pretty imminent. The demolition is going to start on Water Street, you know, within weeks or months. They're going to want to get rid of some of this track, and we don't have any other good option. Secondly, we would like to clear out some of the brush on the east side of the rail trail so that we can see what's there, get a professional survey done at our cost, not the village cost, and just to see if this idea is viable.
And when you're saying east side, you're talking about north of the Rotary Park.
Just north of the Rotary Park, somewhere in there, we hope that there's some 200 feet that would be viable. It's a tricky spot because there's a pretty steep embankment as you get close to Main Street. Then it flattens out sort of behind the post office, and there's some low-lying water there. And we just need somebody who understands surveying and soil to tell us definitively that this can happen. If it can happen, then the plan would be to put that siding sort of straddling where the old siding is, or where the old siding was, and that's because of where the rail trail lies is actually on one of the sidings, and obviously we're not talking about ripping up the rail trail at all, just sort of putting it far enough from the rail trail that it's not a tripping hazard and getting anybody's way, but close enough that it makes historical sense. So it basically be sort of straddling one and a half of the original siding. We'd like to clear out the brush. We'd like to stack it up for removal once sort of spring cleanup comes. Remove any litter that might be back there. My recollection is there might be some old tires and things, and we would volunteer to get it out, get all of that out, with the hope that then we can have a site that a surveyor can look at and tell us whether it's viable to launch this project. If we get the green light from a survey, then the hope would be to think in terms of initially about 200 feet of track. Some of that's already pledged. We have some ideas where we might get some other free or very discounted used track. Need a lot of ties, and then the hardware that holds the track together and puts back on the ties. We also would need a lot of gravel because that's how the ties, stay in the ground. My colleagues on this new board have ideas where to get all of these things, sometimes potentially free. So I want to make clear we're not asking for any village resources. This would be funded by grants and donations and a campaign that we would start. So that describes the immediate phase. The longer term hope is that maybe we could get to the point of having a vintage railroad car there. That's a much larger project. I mean, they don't come cheap, even in bad condition. They are far away. We're talking about probably tens of thousands of dollars to do that. But that, if we have the siding, there's a possibility of doing that. And I think many of you are familiar. Highland has 2 cabooses on its line, and those are cool things. And I guess the last thing I wanted to say is that at every phase of this, the hope would be to have really good interpretive signage. So it's not just metal sitting on wood next to the rail trail. The idea would be to explain in more detail what I explained tonight, that this was kind of the economic center and the thing that built New Paltz. So we would work very closely with the Wallkill Valley Land Trust to make sure that that's complementary signage to what's already there, which does talk a little bit about the railroad, but not signage, not the sort of economic aspects. And to make sure that signage is really educative and does what we're hoping to do, which is preserve and educate this aspect of our past. So everyone, that's my pitch and my ask. We would, again, like your permission to store track when the time comes, your permission to use volunteer labor to clean out that area, both of litter and underbrush and growth, and then to commission a professional survey to see if this idea can happen.
So am I looking at this right? So when you talk about 200 feet, that's approximately from the Rotary Park to the northern edge of the station?
That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then so the survey work would basically be for that general area.
The thinking was probably from the Rotary Park about 400 feet, because it's possible that we're going to run into trouble there. It's the narrowest part of this 70-foot, or it's the steepest part of this 70-foot wide easement or right of way. So I think the prudent thing would be to go about double of what you see in the hopes of finding an appropriate 200.
How many feet above Rotary Park do you think it is where the drainage features show up? Like further away than 400 feet?
I think it's probably right around the 400 foot mark. My sense, I didn't think that,
Yeah,
where the post office, there's that
there's
little,
some significant drainage.
yeah, and we're aware of that. I should have mentioned too, and I did in the document, we have the support of the Village Preservation Commission, the Town Preservation Commission, the Wallkill Valley Land Trust, most important of all, probably, and the town historian. And we have a pledge from the New Paltz Community Foundation to act as our fiscal support until this organization can be its own nonprofit.
So really what you're asking for from the village is just generally a heads up and like a blessing to pursue this project. And then also, if you do a cleanup project, removing trash and branches, just some help from our public works team to take that stuff away. That's
And we
really
shoot for that week, or I guess it's a 2-week.
sure, but in terms of like village resources, that's the most tangible, would be just that assistance from public works.
Yep.
Okay, that seems pretty reasonable to me.
So where would storage be on property?
So the most logical place seemed to be north of the station, just to the west of the rail trail. So as the station continues, as close as we can get to it without getting in anybody's way. So we obviously don't want to put it on the station, the private property. We don't want to put it too close to the rail or to the rail trail so that people trip over it. But just sort of hide it away. We do have a little bit of concern that it could be stolen. I mean, scrap metal prices are high. On the plus side, a full section weighs 1,500 pounds, so it's going to take a very determined, a very determined thief to take a full-size piece. So it may have to be chained together or something like that.
So the final resting place for the 200 feet is where siding existed previously. Right?
Yeah,
All right, so your base is probably still intact for your.
that's a pretty good supposition that there's going to be a lot of embedded gravel down there because that's what it is.
Yeah. And I just, while you were speaking, I was thinking, well, you mentioned goods and produce and materials, but it was also pretty well used for passengers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for getting to the longhouse and the environment and all of that. So,
It was an early 20th century transportation hub, both commercial and passenger.
I just had another question about, so there, you said there's about 80 linear feet near the to be built hotel project.
It's close to 90.
So they're gonna keep half of it,
Right.
and then you're gonna move, and how are you gonna move it north?
Fingers crossed they will do that for us
So-
as part of the
The
demo.
hotel project.
Yeah, that
Okay,
seemed like a handshake agreement
that's great. So they're gonna move it to the west side of the rail trail above the
just
station,
above the
and
station.
then you're gonna secure it there, and that's just, it's temporary resting spot while you do the cleanup part.
That's right.
Okay,
And it's really driven by, I mean, I don't think we will go shopping for any more rail until we're certain that this is viable, but
yeah,
this is driven by the schedule of the owners of 11 Water Street, who I'm sure are gonna want it out of the way. Probably sooner than we can use it.
well, I remember being in nursery school at Huguenot Street, and when the train would go by, we would run out of the classroom and run towards the train and wave, and they wave back.
That's adorable.
I have a few, rail stories from where I grew up too, and they don't always reflect well on some kids running around the neighborhood. But yeah, joking aside, this is a really good opportunity to preserve this little segment of New Paltz history, and that's why I think the signage is so important, and at the earliest stage, we'd want to be explaining this to the public.
I move that we give them all support unless anybody can see some more information.
Yeah, I mean, are you looking for a formal motion?
I think that it would be enough to record that there's support. I think that's enough for this.
I
Sana,
second,
if you
I
feel more-
second Sana's virtual high five. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you very much indeed, and we'll certainly keep you apprised.
I did miss one of the, no, you're done.
Okay.
I did miss one of the things that I should have announced earlier, which is that the New Paltz Pride Coalition has a listing of resources on their website. So if you go to New Paltz Pride coalition.org/resources, you can see all kinds of resources that are available to our community.
So next up, we have the team from family is gonna come and
Andrew Rodriguez, and come tell us about Evolve. And then there's also.
pull up, but feel free to grab an extra thing. All the names just for our meeting minutes and the audience. Okay, Ivan.
I'm Exnike, Program Director.
Well, good evening. My name is Andrea Rodriguez, and I am the program director for the Evolve program. Evolve, it's a program that is for bankers.
And let's, who is
Ah,
this?
I'm sorry. I was.
So go ahead, sorry.
Yes, well, I'm here to talk about some of our programs at family. I am the program director for Evolve, which is a bankers program. We have 7 groups currently. And well, it's a program that it's well, I'm sorry, it's because we have so many things that we would like to talk to you tonight. Perhaps one of the things that I want to talk mostly is the immigrant community. The things that are happening currently in the country and the things that Pamela Woodstock is ready to well, what we're doing for the community. And so we're gonna have some workshops of Know Your Rights in our office in Kingston. And we're trying to set something in our office in Newport and our office in Allenville as well. So and perhaps for the people that are here tonight, we're also looking for volunteers to help us with all our workshops and how we can serve not only the immigrant community, but just the community in general.
There's a coalition of agencies that are looking at what's going on for the immigrant community. And it's largely being led by UIDN, mostly Immigrant Defense Network. But we're doing things like naturalization classes. We're doing a lot of translation, the collection of documents. We're also doing, which is very hard stuff, talking to people about what happens if they get deported, what happens with their children that maybe are citizens. And there's paperwork that can be filled out to help people to designate somebody to respond, not guardianship, but take responsibility for the child. We also wanted to say that our Batters program is a very strong program, but it lost half of its referrals during the COVID, and we're rebuilding it. We run a group for women, we run a Spanish-speaking group, we're running a group in Ellenville and the rest in Kingston. If there was a need, we would run a group in New Paltz. I also want to say that in answer to your question about affordable housing, I could give you a list of the housing that's currently families involved with a project called the Golden Hill Project. It's 164 units. It's the first real workforce housing in 30 years.
It just broke ground.
I'm sorry.
They just broke ground last week, I believe.
Well, no, actually, we just learned last week that the beginning building will be completed by June of this year. And that the senior building will be done in October, and that the entire project will be done by February.
Amazing.
Yes, it's going really fast, and the people that are running it are very impressive.
I was thinking the same thing when Bill asked his question, where I think what you were asking
Sure.
about is just like, is there a resource? And like, you guys would be like my first phone call if I was trying to understand where affordable housing opportunities exist within the county. I mean, in the village of New Paltz, we also have an affordable housing list where we encourage individuals to sign up, so as new units come available per our local affordable.
I
housing.
didn't understand you, that's currently available, there's virtually none.
Right, so there's there's 51 units of senior affordable housing, that will open up. Probably this summer in New Paltz, and there are, there are different apartment complexes depending on the size and when they started. 10% or 15% of the units will be affordable, so there's new affordable units coming online. I think what Bill
Yeah,
was
we're
asking
involved in
about.
a lot of it, actually.
100%, right, so, there are lots of different opportunities, probably, far fewer than is ideal, but they exist. I think all you were asking about is like, is there a place for
Well,
anyone?
we get most of the referrals in the county for housing. But we don't have huge resources, but we have lists. We have a lot of landlords that we work with. A lot of the housing, in order to be affordable, has to have subsidy of some kind. Section 8, there's E-Shy, there's different funding streams, and they've expanded the number of funding streams that will provide different forms of subsidy. But without it, it's virtually impossible. I mean, the Golden Hill project's $82 million. And it 26.5 million of it's coming from foundations and government funding. That's what leveraged the money to be able to make it affordable, but it took 6 years.
Right, my understanding is basically most affordable housing is a function of HUD support and federal government money.
Well, yes, there's different things though. We're doing a project which is not a solution, but it's significant. It's called home sharing. And
Sure, yes, that's a
we
great
just
solution.
expanded it to Kingston, and we hope to expand it to the rest of the county. It's a very labor intensive program, because you have to get the community to know about it. We're doing extensive interviewing and background checks, because we're endorsing these matches, we're following up on them. All of that's being done largely by volunteers. We're two paid staff.
Wow, that's interesting. Glad you're working with them.
It addresses a need, and that's very real, and given the aging of our county. It's very significant, because there are many people that are living in their ancestral homes and don't want to move into assisted living. But they're not sure that can pull it off, whether it's emotional or it's landscaping and shopping. So what HomeShare is doing is negotiating 10 hours for a reduced affordable rent, largely for people that are from the community that don't want to leave their home community. It's a great idea, but it only one in the state, but it's a slow process. We have 10 matches so far, of which 5 of them are over a year. So we're gonna come to you sometime.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finding volunteers. It really is driven by that, and then one salary. The two people that are paid at what was 30 hours and one was 25, I mean, the program is 1,400 shoestring.
Right, I think the point is there's no one solution to addressing housing insecurity challenges. It probably makes
In
sense.
Kingston, their vision is accessory apartments.
Yeah.
They changed their entire zoning to allow accessory units in the entire Kingston.
So we did that a few years ago.
Is it working?
Yes, people are constructing ADUs.
That's great. I think that's a good solution. It's not the solution.
Right,
but
it's part of the solution. So what else about Evolve? Do you have anything else that you wanted to say in particular?
Well, just to follow up with what Michael said, is that, we are looking for more referrals. After the pandemic, yes, we moved virtual, we try to keep some groups virtual, but obviously this type of groups function better in person. And so, my goal here is to make this I mean, I'm really surprised that a lot of agencies and county agencies do not know what Evolve is. And it has been providing services for 40 years. So, I'm just here to let you know what it is about. We are taking volunteers. With most of the people that come into our program are referrals from the courts, probation, parole, but we also take volunteers.
The one thing I would say about the program, from my point of view personally, and I pushed very hard to start it, is that it's the only place where people can change their behavior. It's not based on threat. It's based on discussion. And you see over, the first 10 weeks that she did it, she's the problem. I don't really be. But over time, people start to look at their behavior and start to own their portion of the problem. And we're not 100% successful. We've been largely successful, but even when we're not, we think that we're changing the people that stay long enough in the program.
Grateful you're doing the program, and I'm grateful that I happened to be in family one day and got to meet Andrew and we talked about it, and
Yes,
I made sure that we sent stuff to people in the DA's office and they shared it, and
Yeah.
we're trying to spread it as
Thank
much
you.
as we can. You're welcome.
yeah,
I would say one other thing, we're doing a lot of new posts, but our intent is to do more. We would like to have a full-time domestic violence counselor here. We would like to have a full-time child care worker here. We are leading child care in 3 counties. We also would be interested if the town and village are interested in looking at affordable housing. We would work with you.
I'm very happy to talk to you, work with you on this. This is stuff that we have been working on. We've changed our zoning, we've done the ADU law, we've done, short-term rental, law, we've been doing a lot of things, and I think clearly, if you look at Ulster County, you'll see that the only places where we're getting a lot of new building is New Paltz and Kingston. So I think we've been very successful. The mayor has shared that, we're a housing smart community, but we like above and beyond where most, any of the benchmarks are much lower than where we are.
Yeah, New
They're
Paltz
like-
is anticipating 500 new units in the next
That's
couple of
right.
years, which is
Yeah.
as a
Affordable?
a combination of affordable, all of those apartment complexes are subject to our affordable housing law. One is in particular 100% senior affordable, so
We did-
market rate and affordable.
Senior is important, needed, but it's easy.
Yeah,
Meaning that you're not bringing drug people, you're not. It's much more, 80 of the 164 units of Golden Hills can be seated.
Yeah.
Because there's a need, the population is shifting, but we still need the people that are gonna take care of this.
Yeah, I think it also makes a great deal of sense to have a combination of market rate and affordable. You don't wanna, cities across the US have known and learned the hard way for decades that when you silo people by income, it's problematic.
absolutely.
I think we really have to emphasize workforce housing.
Yes.
I mean, there are people in motels that are paying $3,000 a month, have a roof over their head.
Mhm.
We just put 12 of them into a project we're doing at the former Chiz's Hart Street. And ultimately that'll be 57 units of single housing.
All right, well, appreciate the update.
I'm always happy to get together with you talk about it.
Okay, great.
Just a
Nice to see you all. Yes.
quick question, you mentioned the shared housing group that you've got, is there anyone from the Polks on that committee or that group that you formed?
It started in Woodstock. And Woodstock meant that it included Olive, Chandake, and that area. Now we've moved to Kingston and Ulster. It's a function of having enough money to be operating at all. So we got a commitment to funding for 1 year from Kingston. And we did a survey in Kingston and it was very well received. There were people that expressed they would be interested in using their house. There were certainly people that wanted to affordable housing. It's hard to start a county-wide program without a major grant, which nobody's offered it. So we're doing it a little at a time. I think that New Paltz is certainly a community that could use it.
Michael, remember a couple of years ago, we met with the college
Absolutely.
president and we were discussing this idea. Have you had any traction circling back with the university? Because it seemed like there were some.
It wasn't my meeting. I
Right,
had met him at the time, but he never reached out to me and I didn't feel like I was in a place to offer him something significant.
right, so
I thought that your initiative was really important and I would certainly come down and be more. I think one thing that really shocked me, and I think I know a lot of the county, was when somebody asked me what's the poorest community in the county, and they said it New Paltz. And so I think that there's still work to be done, I know you've done a lot, and I think the school has some responsibility for that. I would certainly work on it if that's a project you feel you could move.
okay, thank you.
Is there anything else we can help you with?
Alan, do you wanna talk about your services in family
I
Naples?
think everybody's pretty familiar with what we do, you know, Donna mentioned, of course, we can always use food. We could always use personal care items. Hygiene products, monetary donations, of course. So those, you know, those are the kind of things that we're always looking for.
The New Paltz food pantry is the second most active in the town.
I think last month we helped about just under 300 people from the area that we serve. But then you said 500 plus affordable housing?
No, 500 units.
Units.
Yeah, okay, so it's a mix of market rate and affordable.
It's gonna be about 37 affordable units.
Really, that's great.
That's on top of the 51 in, of senior affordable units in Manhattan units.
It's all senior housing affordable?
The senior, yes, that's 51 units of affordable,
That developer secured a HUD grant.
Right, yeah.
and we gave them a municipal plan.
Right, our community negotiated a very significant pilot, so that the expense to run that property is manageable.
That's
Therefore,
great,
making it affordable.
that's great, good work. Not easy. Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and for all you do.
Oh,
Thank you.
I was sure,
Yeah.
That's way to make a referral to them all.
I'm sorry,
This is-
That's way to make a referral to them.
to make referrals? Yes,
Yeah, you can do that.
they can,
Thank you.
they can call me.
Spanish,
There's a
you know?
referral form that I can email you and so yeah, that's the best way, just to reach out to me, do an intake and, you know, yeah, if somebody's interested, just to contact me. I have some brochures for our coming up Know Your Rights workshop, that is gonna be
in here.
okay.
Yeah.
And pretty soon we're gonna do something here in Newport as well as the departments for people. You know, how to prepare in case of a deportation. So we have all the documentation, we have to guide them and connect them also with immigration lawyers if they need one.
these cards have been produced, we're gonna get it more, but when they tell people's rights in those Spanish.
Exactly.
So I would have like our planning department triple check my arithmetic, but I'm estimating that of the 500 units that I was referring to, it's actually 551 approximately, and 16% would be affordable.
That's great.
But I would wanna triple check those numbers, but You know, there are
What level?
numerous apartment complexes. And what level of affordability, so we have a local affordable housing law, so it's a percentage of area median income,
What percent?
I think it's 60.
That's terrific. I have a tremendous frustration that Kingston is doing 80 to 120. 127 income is not affordable in this county.
Right.
So good for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the next item on our business agenda is a project that Brad's been working on. Brad, I'm gonna ask you to come to the table and walk us through what you've been working on.
Brad, project manager of the Village of New Paltz. And I have been working on getting an MSW intern to work with the village, largely to help with some of the local government records management improvement fund we're going for, which is gonna catalog and digitize all of the records in the building department, and then hopefully be the beginning of going through all the records for the whole village. Digitizing everything, making everything as accessible and efficient as possible, but also the hope would be to help with a lot of the other issues that we have that pop up. People calling in with issues in the community, helping connect them to services, whatever they need in those departments. And some of the other grants and grant administration, they be able to have them help out on some of the, like the grants for the solar panels for the fire department, the water station. And also hopefully be able to get them to come and sit in on meetings like this or some of the other boards, because it would be an incredible educational experience for them. And you know, extra hands for us, and particularly the having a social work background in this field. I think it's incredibly important because it helps to see the real impact on people, which you guys all obviously are taking very seriously in the work you're doing. But it's, you know, that's the idea of why it's specifically a social work intern rather than necessarily just any intern.
So that the anchor project though is that records management project that would involve the building department, right?
Yeah, that would be probably
And then
the largest, single project.
And we were able to secure grant assistance. That's been announced.
That we're still working on.
Live.
Yeah,
But our fingers are crossed that we received that financial assistance for that project.
the application is not in yet. We were supposed to have a meeting with Jamie Brinkman from New York State Archives, whenever that last snowfall was, and she had to cancel because of the, you know, she was coming down from Albany. So Mike, Alex and I rescheduled. She's coming, I believe, next week as part of the next step of the process. Needs to be actually looking at the records to give us some guidance for what specific project we need to go for, because they have a couple of different categories. And how we want to present that in a way that makes us most likely to receive the funding.
Any other questions for Brad?
Is that,
This particular program?
yeah, that grant fully fund this position?
So the intern is, they don't get paid.
By us, but are they receiving credit or payment through University of Albany?
They get credit as part of their requirements to graduate with their degree.
What degree, what's the?
Master of Social Work.
Okay, I missed that, sorry.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Thanks, Brad. So I move that we go ahead with the related to this project.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is the memo of understanding with Jewel. So Jewel is our Community Choice Aggregation Administrator. So this is basically where the CCA admin asks for energy supply companies to provide us with a number, a cost per kilowatt hour, what we would offer to our community as far as how much they would be paying for electricity generation. And historically, what we've done is we've selected an energy supply company that provides 100% New York State green generation. So this is basically a program where they go out into the world of energy supply companies and get prices. And what we've asked for are prices for both 100% green as well as just the lowest price possible. And then the third category would be like a combination, a blended product, which would be 50% green and 50% lowest price possible. So I believe we're going to get results back from their initiative to get pricing, and then we can decide what we want to agree to, and then that would be the default price for our community members as far as the CCA program.
But we're waiting to hear back on a couple.
Yeah, they're waiting to, no, I just described the answers to my questions,
Okay.
but we are waiting to hear back what those prices will be.
Right.
And then we are waiting to decide, depending on where those prices land, which program we want to go with. So the last term, we were paying just over 12 cents per kilowatt hour. Which I believe was slightly more expensive than if one were to buy generation from Central Hudson. During the previous, and it was 100% renewable and sourced from New York State.
Which the regular one.
Right, there's no guarantee that when you buy generation from Central Hudson, that is green. There may be some green generation, but it can be conventional source generation too. So what's interesting about CCAs is that we're most likely going to pursue a fixed rate product as opposed to a variable rate product. So if you buy generation through Central Hudson, your prices ebb and flow. And that was, if you were only concerned about cost, going with Central Hudson in the last couple of years would have been the better decision. If you were concerned about sourcing from renewable providers, then ours would have been the right decision. But the previous term, we actually gambled on a fixed rate product, and at that point, we were only paying 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour, and it was green. And during that time, it was actually more expensive if you had the variable choice through Central Hudson. So there's always somewhat of a gamble. I think studies show that it's generally better to pursue a fixed rate product than a variable. But sometimes it can go against you if your main focus is cost, just like it has for the last 2 years. So what we have to do in terms of an agreement and basically green lighting, not to use a pun at all, Jewel to proceed is, I'm moving that we go ahead with the agreements as they stand. All in favor? The next item is our retaining.
Question.
Did you guys select the 50/50 or
We didn't select anything. We're waiting for pricing. Do we have to select one now?
I'm pretty sure that
We don't get to see the pricing before we select.
that is my understanding, yes.
Yeah, I'm troubled by that.
Yeah, thanks.
This is supposed to be back to them by tomorrow, and they're gonna call us on the 19th. And we'll have essentially till the end of the day on the 19th to make a final decision, was my understanding. But they'll call us on the 19th with the pricing.
I don't see how we can choose without knowing the price.
Yeah, so what do we wanna do as a board? I mean, affordability is a big issue. My Central Hudson bills are absolutely bananas. I don't understand why why I'm paying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month for electricity, when that never used to be the case.
They won't give us an extension on this.
There wasn't another option which would then involve a series of public hearings. They would have to. We would have to hold public hearings to be able to do that.
So I think what you're saying is that Jewel wants us to commit to one of those three programs, either 100% renewable blended or the cheapest price possible, right?
What I was told, it was either the choice, there was only the two choices, the blended or entirely renewable with what Adam said to me.
What do we wanna do?
I mean, we could also just do a special meeting just to vote once we have numbers, so that it can be finalized in time, I don't know.
You could also, we could vote to authorize me to make the decision. Based on where the numbers come in, but I'd like to take your temperature in terms of where do we wanna land? Do we wanna land 100% renewable, even if there's a significant premium? Cause we don't know, there was a premium last time, we don't know what the premium will be like this time.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking we should select blended.
That sounds good. I was gonna say that unless there was because I'm really concerned about affordability for our constituents. As much as 100% renewables is the goal. I can't see going for that right now without knowing the number. But I'm willing to also give it to the mayor if it's close and it's not, you know what I mean, to make that choice.
I think there are also some benefits too, like when Brad was working on one of our grant opportunities. Like if we are a community that has a CCA, we get points. If we are a community that has a CCA with 100% New York State renewable, we get even a couple more points. So it helps us community-wide to do 100% renewable.
Not knowing the differential is very hard to pick.
Yeah.
I know.
It could just be a cent or two or less, or quarter of a cent, or, you know, we've gone with blended, and it could have been.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we agree to check the box for blended right now, and that's what we'll signal to Jewel.
Sure.
But then when we find out the prices, I'll speak with each of you individually.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll second that.
You know, if there's something that's like totally outside of what we expected.
Yeah,
Okay,
all in favor?
does that work, right? Yeah, cool. All in favor?
Aye. Did we skip 3?
Yes.
Okay, is 3, so that's that's an agreement that.
Software with the county. Where you'd be agreeing to approve.
Right, and that was put on this agenda at the recommendation of our treasurer, Nancy.
Right.
So I move that we go ahead and sign that agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, I move the retainer for our council who supports our planning board and zoning board of appeals, Gordon and Svensson.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next item, resolution of the village memorializing support of the investment of the New York bill package before the New York State Legislature. So this is, someone wanna
Yeah, so
provide us with a highlight regarding the one pager?
yeah, Alex and I met with some folks about this. It's a package of bills, 5 bills, that basically is to tax the rich to raise public dollars and invest it on New York. So the first one is implementing a capital gains tax. The second one is raising corporate taxes on the most profitable corporations in New York. So that first one, I'll go back. I think a lot of people have heard of capital gains, and this would make up a difference by some of the things that we've been not getting money on and possibly likely losing from the federal government. This proposal would raise 12 billion annually. Raising the corporate taxes on the most profitable corporations in New York. Year after year, corporations contribute to our communities. Contributions, I should say, to our communities fail to keep up with the record-breaking profits that they and their ultra-wealthy executives make. So the fact that they're paying less in taxes now than they did in the 1990s is nuts. And a corporate tax bill ensures companies doing business in our state with over $2.5 million in profits will pay what they owe in taxes, and it is proposed that they would raise $7 billion annually. That one. The third one is to make our income taxes more progressive, which is New Yorkers pay taxes on our hard-earned income to fund our communities and the services we all rely on. But because of how our system is structured, millionaires and billionaires don't pay their fair share. And right now, someone who makes $215,000 a year pays the same rate as someone who makes $1 million. So New Yorkers making $5 million or more will pay the same tax percentage as someone who makes $25 million. And there's no higher tax for billionaires. So the progressive income tax bill, this change will change by by adding 10 new brackets to New York's personal tax income tax structure, so that the top 5% of earners pay their first fair share. And this proposal would raise over $21 billion annually. The fourth one is taxing billionaires' wealth. When you or your landlord's property goes up in value, so do the taxes owed. Even if the property isn't being sold, but other property types like paintings, jewelry, stock, etc., aren't taxed this way. And in fact, there's no property tax on them at all. Yet the owners of these kinds of properties, meaning billionaires, can leverage it to secure vast amounts of cash through loans and other instruments and pass their wealth on entirely untaxed. So the billionaire's tax creates a yearly tax on items with accumulated value, just like the already well-established property tax. And this proposal would raise 20 billion in its first year and 1.5 billion thereafter. The fifth one is creating an heirs tax. When a person dies, their heirs to their estate pay very little in taxes. This is even more true for very wealthy New Yorkers. For example, a New Yorker can inherit $5 million and not pay a single dollar in taxes. So the heirs tax will overhaul the current inheritance tax system and allow the state to tax inheritances over $250,000. This number is being negotiated. It will probably go up. And this proposal, as it is written now, would raise $4 billion annually. So altogether, you know, this is, we think, a really important set of bills that we want to support. Should I read the resolution?
No, I think that summary was fine.
Okay.
So I think the important thing is like, this is kind of a pretty aspirational list of legislation. So we'd be just signing on that we are supportive of I think the general objectives.
Sarah Hunter-Shrestha, our assembly member, is a co-sponsor on all of these bills, and Michelle Pinchy is on 1 through 4 or 5. She wants to be higher. So that could change, and I think it will.
What do you mean she wants to do that?
She doesn't support the bill at 250,000 and up. She wants that threshold number to be a higher number, so that if people inheriting a higher number, not just 250,000.
All right, so your motion is to go ahead and sign on to the resolution. I'm gonna second it. Further discussion?
What's the timetable for the bills?
The timetable for the bills, I mean, they're already, they've all been, they're all in both.
They're on committee.
They're both in the House and, I mean,
Okay.
in the Assembly and the Senate. They're already.
They're there.
They have Senate sponsors and,
Yes.
well, you said,
Assembly and Senate, yeah.
Thanks.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Um, I move bills and claims,
Second.
all in favor, any planning board liaison update?
I had a couple of planning board related. Went to also kind of planning board, there were two items in the village, 25 North Chestnut. Goes down Painless, the building behind it, there's no county impact on that. And also a height variance request on 3032 Cooper Street. And no county impact was will be there. Design Review Board, Historic Preservation Committee met as well this week. And they discussed the rail project we like, and I had a week for training. Planning Board, Woodland Pond project, the expansion of the buildings there that's been approved. Village Pizza came up, the new owners with the new lease, tenants of that building presented, and they had great enthusiasm for the space. There were some questions about whether or not the sidewalk is in compliance, so there's some discussion surrounding that. Those are two great highlights.
At the most recent planning board, was there discussion about a survey for the building that's behind Los Jalapenos? You know, because they're interested in rebuilding what was there.
That was previous meeting, but it was on this agenda. We went to plan, I guess, yeah. Wait to see what the county impact would be.
But was there discussion specifically about whether a survey is needed to confirm that they're, you know, because I believe there's some questions about
Right.
whether that building is within its
Right. I don't-
actual property.
I don't recall if it was.
Okay. All right, no ZBA liaison update. Anything else from our board? Okay. Motion to adjourn, all in favor, aye. Thanks. Anyone have any questions, feel free to. Talk to me.